Alrighty, so it's time to take a look back over the 12 weeks of drawing and figure out why on earth did I do it and what did I learn from it. The main idea behind this whole thing was to practice consistency, execution of ideas, and execution of a goal. Create a goal, set it, and achieve it. And why that's important is the easy thing to do is to set and create a goal, but the hardest thing for me is to work on or reach that goal. So the whole thing was an exercise in just that. Create a goal and then do the work to achieve it. And this might be easy for some people, but it's incredibly hard for me as I was raised to be useless. So there's a lot of self-sabotaging to overcome. And I said in the first video, actually I'll quote it. I said that it might not be for everybody, but setting goals or challenges and achieving them is something I find very hard to do because I tend to give up easily and because I get overwhelmed before I even start the goal or challenge. I get to a state where I feel I can't achieve anything. All this starts to become habit and sets my expectations to fail even before I have given it a chance, because that's what I've come to expect from myself. And wow, reading that back is just really awful, to be honest. But I'm here to make meaningful changes, and I think these 12 weeks of drawing was a step in the right direction. I do think along the way I learned some valuable lessons about drawing and about myself and how I deal with those challenges. I found common elements throughout the whole 12 weeks, things like learning that there's so much more to learn, and the more you teach yourself one aspect of drawing, you realise there is just so much more to it than what you might have first thought. And that goes for every challenge and subject that I tried to learn for that week. It felt really overwhelming at times, and at times I thought that maybe this is too much. I can certainly see why masters spend their whole lives learning, and why older schools of art might have you only drawing in pencil or charcoal for the first 2 or 3 years. It's no exaggeration on the time that you might need to absorb all of those concepts before you move on to something else. It's crazy how in-depth art is once you dig a little deeper than trying to draw just, a pretty picture. There's nothing wrong with that. But that's not to say that it isn't worth doing at any level, because it totally is. It's the type of thing that will only go as deep as you are willing to look. One person might look at a painting and say, oh, that's nice, and then move on after 3 seconds. A person might look at it a bit deeper and try and find meaning behind the painting or picture, whereas another one might want to observe the brushstrokes or lines or the particular way a part was rendered and why. My 12 weeks showed me that the art of drawing can be as shallow or as deep and complex as I wanted it to be. Looking back over it, it feels a bit like the saying, if you look into the abyss starts to look back. And that's as best as I can put into words how it felt delving into even just the little bit below the surface the way that I did it. It gave me such a greater respect for the masters of the past and the masters that we have now. Back to the 12 weeks and the more solid concepts that I learned, a big thing that stood out to me is that I rush things and I find it very hard to take the time that's needed for any particular drawing where I'm not trying to do a rough sketch but trying to understand and flesh out ideas better. To do that, it takes time and patience, and that's something that comes very hard to me and something that I'll probably struggle with for a while yet. But the thing is, you just can't rush it. There is no shortcut, hack or secret to drawing. You can pick up a technique or understanding of something to make progress, but it's still going to take time to explore that in the way that it deserves. You can't rush through the process of learning, ever. If time is an issue, then that needs to be sorted out. Another thing I noticed from doing this for 12 weeks is that it put a huge spotlight on my problem areas. For example, a big one for me was getting overwhelmed easily, and I guess that goes back to the feeling of needing to rush everything that I just talked about. Pencil work and shading was a big issue for me and seemed to affect everything I did, especially when I had large areas to cover or to figure out. Those areas just overwhelmed me. I also took on big subjects to learn occasionally, like when I tried different lighting or trying to find what makes mood and atmosphere in a drawing, and I could feel how hard that was to learn. I have a new appreciation for those seemingly simple exercises like shading and lighting, simple shapes, like boxes or spheres, or doing limited value drawings. They might seem insignificant, but they help learn those difficult concepts and develop a better understanding of the process. And all through the 12 weeks, I had to accept the horrible drawings where it felt I failed every part of it. I had to lick my wounds and accept my weak areas, but I also promised myself that I would work on them. I started to develop a new view of those failures, that they were the drawings that reminded me that I was trying, I was learning, I was accepting them without letting them get to me so much that I might quit or feel like a failure myself. I wasn't the failure, I was just learning, and mistakes are part of that process. In fact, the more mistakes that I can uncover meant to me that I was learning more from them. I also had to remind myself that skills can be worked on. My mindset is what's going to make or break this. That means finding a way to accept those moments where I was overwhelmed and maybe a bit discouraged by a drawing, or wondering if I will ever get it, or that I'm just such a slow learner. The best way I got over those moments was to accept the way that I was feeling, and this is the important part, the biggest lesson of this whole thing. Knowing that I wasn't going to give up. Seriously, making that decision beforehand that I wasn't going to give up, what that meant to me was that no matter how bad I might draw or how bad my mind might get because of frustration or overwhelmed, I wasn't going to give up. I wasn't going to give up on myself. I might need to take a bit of time to get over what I was feeling, but knowing that I wasn't going to give up on myself was huge, especially in those times when it felt like the world or whatever circumstance you might be in has given up on you. I did not give up on myself. And it doesn't matter if I draw bad or I find a concept hard to learn. None of that matters when you don't give up. As for those other technical skills, I discovered more and more of them as I wanted to learn and as I went along. And things I might not have fully been aware of before, like how I might want to frame a portrait or other ways to construct a head. I discovered my preferred starting points and processes, but I'm also trying new things and not being afraid to make a bad drawing anymore. I found self-evaluating my progress was invaluable in making all of these discoveries. I couldn't have made them without self-reflection. I would still be getting frustrated at my drawings and why they don't look how I want them to look, which still happens from time to time, mind you, but I'm not giving up even when that does happen. I have learned to look at my work with a critical eye and find out my strengths and weaknesses. I think some of my drawings turned out really well, actually. I love most of the ones that I did in the last week, but there are others along the way that I'm really happy with, and it's because I felt like I worked on a problem and made progress with that problem. I did take breaks from learning on a couple of weeks, especially where I might have struggled the previous week. It was time for me to relax and take the pressure off a bit before I started on the next subject. So I learned the best time of day for me to draw. I also learned that I don't deal well with the distraction of someone else being in the house when I try to draw. It's a weird one, and one that I do want to find ways to fix, but for now I'm working around it. I learned that sometimes I set my expectations way too high when it's not needed. And I learned that I want to explore more in my drawings instead of being beholden to the reference. I want to add a piece of my own idea in the drawing, if that makes sense. I learned to lean into my natural curiosity when exploring concepts or different methods, and I learned that with time and practice, I can slowly get better. But the most important thing I learned was that I didn't give up. I achieved my goal. I was able to overcome my challenges and do 12 weeks of drawing. And this is an important milestone. It was a big one too. The next one, I don't think I'll make as big as this one because of those things that I learned. I want to spend more time on my drawings, and that might mean I can't complete one in one day. I want to spend more time on finishing and the parts that I need to spend more than an hour on. I also want to split up my art activities during the day so that I can get a bit more variety in. It started to feel like all I did was portrait drawings, and that's basically what I did for 12 weeks. I gave everything else up just to reach that goal. So now that I've done that, I want to learn to balance my activities a little bit better. I'm going to take a break for another couple of weeks to figure out exactly what I want to do next. And once I have that figured out, I will come back with a new goal and I will keep you in the loop of what's going on. I do have some ideas, but they need to be fleshed out just a little bit more so that I know what I'm doing. I really hope that by sharing my journey and documenting my path and growth, that it might help or inspire others in whatever endeavours you might be doing. You can always comment and tell me what you're working on, and I'll be here to encourage you on your own path. So with that, I thank you for watching, and as always, remember to keep drawing, keep learning, and keep getting better. I'll see you next time.